Hello. This is Interzone. I am sorry I'm slightly late. Have some things going on, but yeah, I'll get started in a moment. Can people hear me okay? Cool. Is the noise from outside coming in? Okay, that's good. You're gonna forgive me for being a bit tired. I'm still kind of waking up, and a few things have been going on recently. But I have a few interesting things here. Anyway, since I started this YouTube channel and people found out I had some background in Islam, people have wanted me to do videos or talk about Sufism and Islamic mysticism and magic. And there's been a lot of reasons why I haven't gone into this, essentially until now. And even then, I have a lot of material next to me, but it's not everything. But yeah, this has been asked of me more than anything else. So yeah, I have some things that might be of interest to some people, and I can talk about more than just Sufism, since I've been away for a little while, and I have a lot of drama, I guess, has gone on in the background while I've been away, mostly caused by me. And that one pill, what, Captagon? Light in the Shadows? Oh yeah, I usually make a habit of not reading out people's names due to talking about ONA stuff quite a lot. I have a habit of not doing that. So if I don't read out people's names, it's more to protect people's identities. If you want, which pill are you talking about? You just finished Hostia. What version? Which publication? All three. I mean, when was it published? What year? Be careful with the newer publications post 2005 or so of Hostia. 2013. So that will be, give me 1 second. Some people complain that everything I do always turns into something related to the O9A. And that's true. That really can't be helped, given that I've spent nothing but 6 months. No, 7 months doing nothing but investigating the ONA. So yeah, so that Hostia publication would be this one, which isn't mine. I have borrowed this off a friend. Hello. This publication is anything that says this. That's a good warning sign. Everything will be inverted, of course, but anything that says outer representative, yeah, that's not the best. As the ONA never had a outer representative. So the 2013 edition of Hostia that you're talking about, is it the same one? This would be, yeah, this is the same one as this. Sanctioned by Joel, outer representative, order of 9 angles, 124 YF. I've got a Chloe edition too of one, not Hostia, but of one. But yeah, anyway, I brought it here. The infamous Chloe 352. Stay away from anything. Well, to be honest, it's mostly just copy and pasted. Hostia is great. I'd recommend finding. Yeah, to start this. Have you read Naus? What I'll do. The Glowy edition. It is the Glowy edition. I have a theory on who Chloe is, but it's so borderlining on schizo posting that I am not going to do it because yeah, I'm not going to do I'm trying not to be speculatory too much, but I'll go into some Sufi things in a moment. With regards to Hostia, I recommend, and I can say this, I know I've been in the past very over-precautious regarding referencing and things like that due to the Australian counter-terrorism laws, and that was for good reason. The copy of Hostia I have is published in 1992 by Thormund Press, Leicestershire, England, and I have a 1980s copy of Naus. These are all PDFs, animations of Urania, the Star Game. These are all things that I can say are legitimately order of 9 angles. The Chloe edition of Hostia it's still a really solid book, but there are some discrepancies between them. Okay, before I get off track completely, what I will do is explain why I have not talked about this subject matter for the past couple years since I magically appeared on the internet. This is the talisman or word square that was in the thumbnail. I know it was upside down in the thumbnail. I did that Actually, I actually didn't do that on purpose. I could not be bothered making a new thumbnail. So well, actually, no. I've had this with me in my wallet everywhere I've gone now since 2017. It's funny. When I've been searched by police, I've been a little bit worried about them seeing a bit of a baggie hidden in a clandestine part of my wallet, and assuming that it is going to be cocaine or something. But I never get searched, so I'll tell you why I put it there. This was given the person who made this is dead, sadly. Given the clues I've given you, I'm sure you all know Arabic fluently and Arabic numerical systems, and also, I just assume you know how to read this. I'm kidding. Have a guess what this is actually for. See if anyone can because this is universal. And anyone have a guess why I'd be carrying this hidden in a clandestine way in my wallet for the past, 7 years, longer? This is about money. This utilizes, it's a 4x4 number square, magic number square. And essentially, this involves the utilization of jinn. Essentially, to bind them and force them, or make them help you get more money, accumulate more wealth. That was given to me by my ex-wife. That was actually initially hers. And that's another reason why I have stayed very clear of talking about Sufism properly, is because a lot of this interconnects with the privacy of my ex-wife, whom I do not wish to essentially give her anything that could lead to who she might be. I have absolutely no contact with her anymore. Not since finalizing the divorce. And another reason, that's the first reason. I've stayed away from talking about Sufism. The second is almost all of my Islamic stuff. And I'm not just talking about books, I'm talking about, publications, and I'm talking about clothing, everything has not been with me here. If anybody saw my picture on Twitter, I uploaded as a joke. People of me in the middle of the desert, wearing a certain Middle Eastern, Arabian Peninsula countries' aristocratic clothing. I'll retweet it just so it's at the top of my Twitter if people want to go and look, because I'll put a link to it. It's a funny picture. It's a joke I made. Yeah. That's the picture. I'm gonna pin this. I reckon, yeah. So that picture of me, I'm making a reference to the video that has become relatively popular recently. The Order of Nine Angles, ONA, what being a niner is really about, and ACES. Anyway, point being, I have all these clothes and much more than just this. I was hoping by the time of doing this that I would have everything back here. At the moment, the rest of it is being posted to me, and it might even be arriving today. I'm not entirely sure. So without my journals, without my documents from Sufi mystics, and without my core Islamic books, I essentially, I've had, because pretty much almost nothing in print on Sufism is actually legitimate. Very, very few things are. So I went away recently and I found a bit of a gold mine. I'm going to show something, and I'll show it properly later, that I don't think people in the West, to put it this way, what I have in here, you're probably never going to see anything like this before. And I don't know how I've been able to save this. Because the main issue with Sufism is in the areas of the world where, and look, even the name, the word Sufi is completely misappropriated. Sufi just means saint. It doesn't mean Islamic mystic. It's like with everything with Islam, very, very misunderstood. When people think of Sufism, a lot of the time they think of the whirling dervishes and all that stuff. That's not real Sufism, though. the whirling dervishes came, yes, ecstatic dancing until you are completely put into a state of an altered state of consciousness, or in niner terms, from the causal to a more acausal perspective. You are able to induce mystical experiences. And however, the whirling dervish is Muslims spinning around. That was mostly done to entertain Western aristocrats in the 1800s. And mostly, if you notice, they were young men doing it. And that is because of the rampant pederasty that was going on in the Middle East by the likes of Lawrence of Arabia and other aristocrats, more for their sake, and part of the whole Orientalism fad that happened during the late 1800s. So the dervishes are legitimately mostly for, and pederast is essentially someone who's sexually attracted to boys between the ages of usually 12 and 16-ish. And Lawrence of Arabia was a rampant pederast. So the dervishes were to entertain the likes of Lawrence of Arabia. Then there has been another problem with Sufism is the whole Sufi order thing. The Sufi orders, I don't trust them. None of them are in the West that are legitimate. I'm not saying this to be a dick. I've gone to, Central and South Asia. I've gone to the Middle East, Southeast Asia. There were a few but like with most magical traditions, and don't get me wrong, the Sufis' role in the communities were not, the aesthetic kind of lifestyle that you think of when you think of Sufi orders, or the kind of with deep similarities to Hinduism and Buddhism. They're more like cult compounds. I would highly recommend not that you'd be able to actually, unless you speak the native tongue, you'll have very little luck being able to talk to these people. Another problem is Salafism. Salafism is a Sunni Islamic sort of movement that came out of a lot of people use the term Wahhabism, and that's mostly referring to the last name of an Islamic scholar, but even Wahhabists prefer the term Salafist. They're pretty much indistinguishable. Weirdly enough, and that all came from the Muslim Brotherhood, a Islamic extremist organization from the early 1900s, and one of the first modern Islamic jihadist, terrorist, Islamist organizations, essentially. Muslim Brotherhood came from Egypt, which is interesting. And they themselves had ties to different Sufi movements, which is interesting. Because the biggest reason that nobody knows anything about Sufism is Salafist jihadists kill them. Essentially, it is a silent genocide that has been going on for a long time, but it really kicked in the late 1800s. There were a lot of Sufis, and within Sunni and Shia Islam, and some would even go to the UK, and a lot, especially some from India, because a lot of them were, sitar players and stuff, and would utilize music as a form of invocation, supplication, and prayer. They're very interesting. I was going to bring them up. They are not Muslims though, but they're very, very interesting. They're also being genocided, but by ISIS for a long time. ISIS or Daesh are the worst culprits in all this, but I'm going to go into some of this stuff more very soon. I'll first show a couple things, but even in places like India, and in the context of history, that I'm going to include Pakistan with this before. Yeah, they are a Kurdish group. They have some very interesting beliefs, but I don't know too much about them other than from a sort of historical context with regards to terrorism and extremism in Iraq in particular. Anyway, the places like India before the breakup into Pakistan, when it was all encompassing, there were a lot, because of the Hindu, Sikh, and I'm gonna get a coffee in a minute. So I'm still not quite awake, but yeah, they had a bit of a refuge in India and modern Pakistan, where they flourished, because most of this stuff goes back to the Mughal Empire, but also mass migration of certain tribal groups from the Arabian Peninsula to places in southern India and Pakistan had a huge influence, along with the tolerance from Hindu nationalists. Whereas Salafism was slowly taking over in the countries in the Arabian Peninsula. And when I say that they're being genocided, I'm not saying that lightly. They as much as I love the Taliban, especially because they have hilarious memes, which is something I enjoy on their Twitter accounts of various people and various contacts. If any Taliban contacts are watching this, don't get annoyed at me, but they post a lot of memes of Sufis looking stupid, and then to try and sort of show that Sufism is not real Islam, and all that. But the interesting thing is the Taliban have a far more, because tribally mostly Pushtun, and their tribal area goes into Pakistan also from Afghanistan. They have a lot more mystical traditions than the majority of Islamic countries these days. But yeah, I'll make a coffee in a minute. But what I'm going to show you is also the person who did this is dead. Another reason is it's an oral tradition. That's why the Sufi order stuff is mostly absolutely bullshit. How actual Sufis, what do you think the Taliban did to Lord Miles? Twitter memes. Well, I didn't know he existed until right now, so I have no idea. I guess he was trying to do what I did in the majority of my 20s, which was go to places that I had no place being, and then horrible things happening, and then doing it again because I don't even know why I did it. Yeah, well, you don't see me. I did that stuff. It depends on what province of Afghanistan who went missing in. Traveling Dave parts of the world. All right. Well, if he was arrested by Taliban, he's fucked. I've been in similar situations, and how you don't get murdered or imprisoned, because if he was famous for doing that stuff, did he have any knowledge of the cultures of the places he went to? Like any idea, or would he just go and expect that his fame would protect him? In a place somewhere in Central Asia, I was almost... Yes, exactly. The difference, I assume, because I don't know anything about this guy. Now, most likely, the the mistake he made. Well, the two major mistakes you make going to these places is, one, you have no idea what the culture and history is, and you go there as a absolutely naive idiot, which you have to anyway to learn about these places. So, but you need to do your research, and you need contacts. You need to know people. If you don't know people who are embedded in the culture, and especially civil servants embedded in the government, you have no fucking protection. Well, if he wasn't, was he arrested immediately upon entering Afghanistan? Because the Taliban want to keep good PR. However, if you don't understand, not even Islamic culture, you have to specifically understand Sunni Islamic culture. Then you need to understand Pushtun tribal culture. Then you need to understand bits and pieces of Pashto, Dari, and if you're not a Muslim, well, it's probably a good idea to be a Muslim. And you need to know about the history. You need to know about the tribal groups, the provinces. You need to also know about their Sunni Islamic jurisprudence or Sharia law. You need to know about the 4 major schools. You need to know about the specific school the Taliban follow, rather than the school that is followed in Saudi Arabia. The Taliban are Hanafi, and you also need to understand Sunni Islamic movements like Salafism. The Taliban are under the Deobandi movement, which is a Central and South Asian Sunni Islamic Hanafi school movement. You then need to understand the influences of Salafism in the Deobandi movement, even though Salafists are under the Hanafi school of Sunni Islamic jurisprudence. Then you need to know the basic history. Anyway, yeah, Afghanistan is essentially in the center between the Middle East, South Asia, going up through Central Asia into Russia, Europe. Shia and Sunni Islam, it's all all right. This is how to just make it completely easy. Sunni and Shia Muslims were just Muslims, right? And then what happened was, when the Prophet Muhammad was dead, so essentially some Muslims believed that the Islamic Caliph needed to be somebody from the bloodline of the Prophet Muhammad, whereas Sunni Muslims believe anybody can claim that position without having to be from the bloodline of the Prophet Muhammad. That's the easiest way to explain the schism, and that's why ISIS in the al-Baghdadi was able to make himself a caliph, even though he has no ties to bloodline, because in Sunni Islam that is permitted. However, ISIS are a terrible example of Sunni Islam. And the person asked me why Islam is not foreign to me. Yeah, I know I'm Australian, right? However, this is a very young country. If I was from the UK, it'd be a little bit different, because, I would possibly have thousands of years of family there. I don't have thousands of years of family in Australia. So, and I am from Eastern Europe, and specifically a place and there are a lot of white Muslims in Eastern Europe. And so, I'm from Yugoslavia, back when it was Yugoslavia, before the Civil War. And I grew up in a place during a time with a mass migration, which is never popular, of Yugoslavs was going on. And so the Australian kids, and I was in a very rough background, they just saw me as another, in a similar way that you look at the mass migration crisis in Europe. They lumped me in as a Yugoslav refugee in the 90s, and so my only friends, because growing up, were Muslims. There weren't any other Yugoslavs at my schools, but there were a lot of Palestinians, Jordanians, and a few, mostly Jordanians, that I became friends with because the Australian kids wouldn't play with me. And so I grew up surrounded by Muslims. And then I was always interested in spirituality and things like that. So, and I have always despised Christianity with regards to Protestantism and Catholicism for the most part. However, I have a respect for Orthodox Christianity. I mean, they used to call it Greek Orthodox when I was growing up, but most of my family are, my father is technically Eastern Orthodox, because Serbia. So I'm from a place on the border of Bosnia and Serbia. Serbia was under the control of the Ottoman Empire for about 800 years. Bosnians, the name literally just means Turkic Serb. And what Bosnians are Serbians whom, and this is where some of the animosity before World War II between Bosnian and Serb relations. The Bosnians were Serbs who married into the aristocratic families of the Ottoman Empire during their occupation of Serbia. And so they could become civil servants and stuff. So they married into this Turkic invasion. of our people, and thus were seen as collaborators and traitors. And then they married, the daughters of Ottoman aristocracy and all that. So they had Turkish bloodlines. So Islam for me is absolutely nothing foreign. And yeah, I reverted because Muslims don't use the word converted, because you're essentially you're originally a Muslim essentially, and you're just you're reverting back into that state. Because after years of my life being an absolute mess, and being a morphine addict and all that stuff, and running around. Anyway, all stuff I've talked about before, I really wanted to sort my life out. And one time I was in a detox facility coming off morphine, and I was kind of desperate because the withdrawals were so severe. And something told me, not something like, I got an idea the day before going into this fucking detox clinic, right? That, I got to buy a Quran. I don't know why. I hadn't read the Quran before. Not properly. So I ran to a bookstore and they happened to have one. Shit translation. Absolutely terrible. And I was in such bad cold turkey withdrawal that I was hallucinating and all kinds of things, and I couldn't get through it. I was going to leave in the middle of the night, and so I decided to essentially make a oath that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would get me through that night, I would convert to Islam. And I'm a man of my word. That morning I was given Subutex and essentially was finally had some relief. And yeah, so I kept that on the back burner for a while, because it actually did get me through that night. And how I became interested in a woman who became my wife was when I was introduced to her. People thought she was Indian for some reason, but that was mostly because she kind of dressed herself up to be, because being from aristocratic Arab background in the West, get treated too well, depending. And so I knew that. Yeah, I started asking her some stuff about Islam, and she gave me a copy of the Quran that is actually good, the only English translation that is essentially utilized around the world. by Sunni Muslims and for English, because the reason the Quran in the West is not, to put it this way, when you read the Quran and you're getting it a good translation, the impact of it is very powerful. It's not like the 5 books of Moses or the Tanakh, the Old Testament. It's not like the New Testament. The language of the Quran is very different, very powerful. However, in the West, all the translations are absolutely terrible into English, even though for the past, since the 1930s, we've had a brilliant translation, and it is utilized everywhere else in the world except the West. And I think this is because, despite what everybody thinks, I don't think, with regards to bringing in, especially in Europe, mass migrations of Muslims, I do not think that they want to, turn the UK into a essentially Islamic country. Or if that is the case, they are extremely stupid because they need to publish. So they need to stop and push the good publications of the Quran, because that will get people, especially disenfranchised young men in particular, whom do not like the current culture where you're not allowed to be a man, essentially. The current culture where you can't say or do anything, where strength isn't particularly respected and all that. And a lot of people who are drawn to neo-Nazism because of the depravity of Western civilization. And the same neo-Nazism sort of offers the same universal cure for all the problems of society and the world, which is a naive thing. Same with, but if you're somebody who is sick of it, Islam offers the same thing to young men that Nazism does. You can be a real man, you can get married, have a normal life, be part of a community where there's none of that PC bullshit. And all the problems of the world are neat and put into this universal system of a way of life. And that is very appealing. And that's why people like David Myatt became a Muslim after leaving Combat 18. And though there's other complex reasons for that. But for me, the only thing that stopped, I was, as I mentioned before, involved in neo-Nazism when I was a teenager. All my friends were neo-Nazis, recruited by, ironically enough, remaining members of Combat 18. They even radicalized me because at the time there was no work. And a lot of us applied for over 150 jobs in 1 month. And yeah, during this period, there was literally no work in the place that I was living, and essentially a lot of Indians came and bought out all the McDonald's and all that stuff. Then they only hired other Indians, and for teenagers, that was our only sort of option for work. And that was the main motivator. And yeah, they did do that. So everyone became very racist, including myself, during this period in the late 2000s. However, because of the Eastern European Serbian thing, that caused issues with neo-Nazis involved in militant groups like Combat 18. However, a lot of them did defend me. I used to fucking house sit for some guys involved in Combat 18, and they'd brag that they had never had a non-Aryan, in their house. And I was like, I'm not fucking Aryan, technically. Anyway, the thing that stopped me from actually getting into neo-Nazism was that they were racist towards me. Even though a lot of them had brown eyes, I've got green eyes. Anyway, I look like... I've got absolutely no issue with people having involvement in neo-Nazi groups and things like that, because I get it. The only reason I wasn't involved was because despite how based Serbia is, at the time in Australia, the neo-Nazis were fucking stupid. And not all, but the ones that were, anti-Serbia, because there is a lot of neo-Nazism in Serbia, which is interesting. But anyway, I'm getting off track. With Islam being somebody who disenfranchised, I guess, with narcissism, the media will have a ball day, the shit I'm saying at the moment. But I've made it no secret. And so, when I had the opportunity, she gave me a Quran by Abdullah Yusuf Ali, which I don't have here because I've got so many Qurans, and I'll show you why. But Abdullah Yusuf Ali translation is the only good translation into English of the Quran. The only one that actually shows the power and the sort of poetry, I guess you could say, of it. And so I do not regret becoming a Muslim. It's funny, for a very long time, I had an Islamic first name, and I'm not going to tell you, but the name wasn't changed legally, but I needed a Muslim name, and like Myatt did. But anyway, Abdullah Yusuf Ali. This Quran I got purely because this is a very good commentary by Abdullah Yusuf Ali, who was a Shia Muslim in India, who reverted to Sunni Islam, and then essentially, to put it this way, the aristocrats in the UAE, the Emirati, the aristocrats in Saudi Arabia, if they use a translation by a non-Arab, especially by an Indian, you know it's going to be good, because they're extremely racist to Indian and Pakistani Muslims. Extremely. And Saudi Arabia utilized the Abdullah Yusuf Ali translation into English for all their Qurans. And this is where I found something very special. I'll read the comments in a moment. I managed to get a few of my old books back. You'll never guess where I got this one from. This one's interesting. This one actually has a lot of Sufi kind of practices in it. In fact, to such an extent that this is now not, they got rid of all of the invocations and supplications, etc., in this, because in Pakistan and in India, they have become so Salafist that they're purging their books from all that kind of stuff, because a lot of Islamic practices are very interesting. Like, all right, when you think of it this way, the world was created according to the Abrahamic faiths when God spoke. So the utilization of speech is the most important thing in Islam. And the reason why Arabic is necessary to know enough of is because, of course, the Prophet Muhammad was an Arab. It is deemed, similar to Hebrew in Judaism, the sacred language. So you need to learn how to speak it before, in order to have your prayers received, in order to, so I'll show you one thing, an Islamic practice which is now deemed magic, essentially, and so thus not in accordance to current Salafist ideology. Muslims will recite little invocations, usually over water, and then they will blow into the water 3 times and then drink it, or give it to the afflicted person to drink, which is very, very interesting. And it's a practice you don't usually see. It doesn't sound like much, but it's essentially using the speech in a manner of God to essentially cure ailments and help you. There's literally in Islam things to say for every situation humanly possible. Every time you enter the house, your home, you'll say أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, to kind of protect yourself from and I'm trying to find an example. There's hundreds in this book on how to heal something. 305. Using speech and water. Sorry, I'll show you a few things in a moment. At time of sexual intercourse. Yeah. I think that one may be one of the reasons why this is being banned. Last time I was in South Asia, I couldn't get a copy of this because these are sold everywhere, and they're useful because they're in English, Arabic, and transliterated Arabic. And it's a small book, and it has, almost everything you need. So, it's got the Arabic, English transliteration of. And so last time I was in South Asia, I very much need a reference because I'm horrendous with Arabic. And also this has all the du'as or supplications, all the invocations, and 1,000 other things to kind of remind myself, because I don't want to fuck up. I don't want to fuck up like that guy did in Afghanistan. But when I went to Central South Asia, the last time, I couldn't buy this book anywhere. I couldn't order it anywhere on Amazon over there. And I couldn't find anything. And this caused some issues because things are getting very tense there. I was in a very fucked up situation. And despite in the Middle East, Muslims respect very much somebody who was not born into Islam, yet is a practicing Muslim, because of the amount of work that is involved, the amount of Arabic you have to learn and memorize. Growing up with that as a child, even if you're Pakistani and your native tongue is Urdu, you will have to learn enough Arabic for the prayers, enough Arabic for the supplications, enough Arabic for the greetings, for everything. It's so having a reference is extremely important. And the Deobandi Islamist movements in South Asia started banning this, of all things. Mostly banning, or they changed it. And even my copy here is not this edition. They cut out 100 pages from the one that my ex wife had. And I kept trying to tell her that there's a difference. She just thought it was a smaller print. And I'm like, no, they've cut out so much. Because one of the things I was keeping an eye on in South Asia was the absolute... I was watching everything become more and more extreme around me when I was there with regards to Islam. And so this was only published in 2016. And when in 2019 and through 2020, I returned to South Asia, no one could get even this copy, which had cut out a lot of the invocations. So even just little things like that, and in places where they're much more relaxed regarding, they completely started getting rid of it. And this is useful, at the time of jihad. It has for protection from oppressors. Yeah, we need that. We definitely need that. Supplication to seek children. You see, this stuff is in a Christian Protestant context. All of this stuff is magic. You can't, yet in Islam, this is normal. It's only very recently, for forgiveness and deliverance from tyranny or disbelievers, when one suffers from insomnia, at the time of going to bed at night, he should recite Holy Durud 100 times, and then the verse mentioned below should be recited repeatedly. La ilaha illallahul makul hakul mubin. There is no God but He, the King, the True. To ward off the evil eye, spell, or envy, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ recited the following sunnah 3 times when one fell ill from his family. Bismillah rahmanir rahim, kul a'udhu rabbinai fal akumin shalai ma. It's been so long. I can't be bothered. Supplication to increase knowledge. I used to do this one all the time to try and make me learn Arabic better. Recite the verse mentioned below to increase knowledge, and below 3 times in the water, and then consume it. Just from Sunnah to Lord, increase me in knowledge. Rabbi zidni ilma. There's literally something for everything. Supplication to get rid of magic and jinn, for getting rid of the influence of magic and jinns, recite the following prayer in Sunnah Fatihah. Al-Fatihah is the first sunnah of the Quran. It is a very small paid sentence, paragraph essentially, and it is the ultimate sort of prayer in Islam. Anyway, this is not even Sufism. This is just normal Islamic practice, which is being purged everywhere. And so this is heretical, essentially. And it gets worse. And yeah, Al-Fatihah I used to know it off by heart, but it's been years. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim. Malakai Yamadin. Iyaka nabudu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ishnistas. Oh, this is a shit transliteration. That's the other problem, is most of this stuff is written or transliterated by people who don't know English very well. It is embarrassing to have forgotten this. But as I said, it has been literally 3 years since I have even been involved in Islam, since I apostatized. So yeah, Surah Fatiha, it's this. This is the very, very, very first chapter of the Quran, essentially. And it is tiny. But this is the ultimate prayer. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Ar-Rahmani Ar-Rahim. Malakai Yamadin. Iyaka nabudu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ishdina siratal mustaqim siratal lazina an'amta alaihim ghayril maghdubi alaihim waladdallin. Ameen. Yeah, I'm very, very, very out of practice. I'm going to make a coffee in a moment. I've been kind of scattered, but I've gone through quite a rough period recently. And yeah, some of things I'll show you while I do that is finally got this again. This is the hadiths that I utilized as a Muslim. Hadiths are essentially the equivalent of the Talmud in Islam. This book will make you attainment of the objective according to evidence of the ordinances. Yeah. Bulak al-Maram. This has everything from jihad, marriage, inheritance. This is all from... It is the best book of authenticated hadiths. And this one in particular is from where the school of Islam I was under, which is the Shafi'i school. And essentially the only hadiths used by them, because there are hundreds of thousands of hadiths. And anyway, you'll be able to work out where I'm what areas, depending on what school of Sunni Islamic jurisprudence. But here's where things get interesting. Is this? This is... Now, I might be wrong because journalists lie. Even good journalists like to spice up their own infamy, story a little bit. When you go and hang out with journalists from back in the, from the 70s, 80s, etc. Oh, hi, John. Thank you. It's good to see you again. I was given this, and this is... I finally got this back. This was given to according to a journalist who was the person whom... He's dead, but this book is who got this book. This is a Quran that Saudi Arabia published that they used to give to foreign diplomats. And what's interesting about this is, despite this being, so the English that is, the Holy Quran, English translation of the meanings and commentary. To put it this way, this is the most amazing book, Quran, I have ever come across for so many reasons. It is absolutely beautiful. But the commentary of this is so amazing. Like, they go into so much mystical elements. And so what it says in Arabic below here is, the custodian of the two holy mosques, King Fahd ibn Abdul Aziz al Saud, king of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and has the honor to order the printing of this Holy Quran and the translation of its meaning and commentary. The reason this is so important is this book is heretical now. This was published King Fahd Holy Quran Printing Complex, and done by the Presidency of Islamic Researchers, IFTA, guidance. So this was authenticated and published under King Fahd himself of Saudi Arabia. So to have a book given to foreign dignitaries by him, by the Saudi regime, I was shocked because of how much, and I know they're giving this to give context to non-Muslims in particular. This commentary is absolutely amazing, and it's good luck finding any of these books, because there is no way they have most likely destroyed as many of these as possible, because the commentary is so mystical, absolutely so far away from Salafism that, yeah, all right. This is the problem with trying to talk about this, is a lot of this involves my ex-wife. And I'm trying not to, but fuck it, it's been years now. My ex-wife's father happened to be a journalist, of all things. He was a Arab aristocrat from a certain country. I'm not going to mention which one, in the Arabian Peninsula. He's dead. He was a foreign correspondent. He also was a war correspondent in covering was in Lebanon. And anyway, now she doesn't know this, but he started to collect things from South Asia and the Middle East that were heretical, and then keeping them. And he never told them why. They didn't know it was heretical. Women in Islam are not as it in the culture meant to be as scholarly. As long as they have an understanding of the Sunnah and they are in accordance to, oh, hey man, thanks. And yeah, so essentially this journalist was collecting this stuff, and also he was collecting jihadist, Islamist material. And when I was in one of his houses in South Asia, I managed to find a book written by a participant in the wars that created Pakistan, and it's by a Deobandi Islamist terrorist organization, essentially the second oldest other than the Muslim Brotherhood. And I believe her father was collecting these things for the same reason I do. He was seeing Salafism taking over, not just in the Middle East, but also in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, etc. And it terrified him. As a journalist, especially, because they kill you. So this is from the 1980s. And that is what it looks like as the English, the Arabic, and then the usual, and then the commentary. It is of great historical importance because all the, and Sufism is not a good word for all this, but actual Islam is so mystical compared to Protestant Christianity and stuff like that, that Salafism trying to strip away all of these elements of Islam, not just Sufis, but stuff practiced by Muslims for all over the world for 1,000 years. And they are not just destroying actual Islam, they are by killing Sufis and mystics, but they're destroying it by destroying all knowledge of pre-Salafist Islam. So they no longer, if they still have, a contemporary version of this book, the commentary will be extremely boring. Because this is dangerous. This is probably one of the most dangerous books I own, purely because I'm not meant to have it, and also Saudi Arabia doesn't want this book to exist anymore. They want to destroy any trace of King Fahd being attached to authenticating something that is so mystical. Now, I don't know whether this journalist, my ex-wife's father, was given this because he wasn't a diplomat. He was probably a spook. printing rights reserved for King Fahd, Holy Quran, printing complex, blah, 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 Al Medina. And the translation of this is the Abdullah Yusuf Ali translation. So even the Saudis use the Yusuf Ali. And they are so racist towards Indians and Pakistanis. So yeah. This is dangerous purely because they don't want it to exist. The things that have been that have killed essentially Sufism is number one, the New Age movement and hippie dickheads who know nothing about Islam, incorporate elements of Sufism, mostly the pederastic whirling dervish shit that they just did mostly as a way to entertain pederasts like Lawrence of Arabia. The New Age movement and they're killing Sufism by all their bullshit. Then there are the Salafists who are killing real Sufis. Then there are the Sufi orders, majority of them fake, the majority of them having essentially just cults. And there are no Sufi orders in the West. All the actual Sufi mystics that I've met may have a loose attachment. They have a mentor. And the guy who did this, he worked as a Sufi. He wasn't just some ascetic living in some Sufi cult compound doing nothing. No, he had 2 wives. He was one of the most important members of the community because he would make talismans for people. He would do things. More importantly, he performed exorcisms. I probably mentioned this before, but yeah, my ex-wife had to go through a few exorcisms when she was in South Asia, because she was Middle Eastern, but because of possession by jinn. Also, another thing is, and yeah, I had to perform 3 exorcisms on her because according to her, and this is quite common with Arabian aristocratic families, they have jinn in the family bloodlines. And this is one thing to clear up. And you fake you want to be niners who use shaitan constantly in your fucking names because of trash like this, the Black Path Martin Press. This absolute embarrassment. This made me more angry when my friend showed me this than anything Myatt had published. This is before I knew much about the whole ONA thing. Let me just say, I can't show you this because of YouTube. That's meant to be, it's a naked woman who looks like, she's meant to be jinn. It's fucking embarrassing. This woman is not Arabia family. This is just some random model from, looks like she's at a beach somewhere in California. Okay, so she's meant to be like my wife, I think, ex-wife, with jinn in her family bloodline. Yeah, my ex-wife wouldn't have pictures of this taken of her, to say the least. Jesus Christ. And now on to something I shouldn't even have, and the hook that I should have used straight away. I finally found this. This is the real stuff. This is by a Sufi mystic whom essentially a magician. This is all right. So when you think of the Middle East, right, the fucking back when if you've ever been in the middle of the desert before light pollution at night, the stars are incredible. And Arabs were the best astronomers and astrologers in the world, because there isn't much to study. Like that link I pinned of me in the middle of the desert, there is literally nothing other than sand going on and on and on. So the stars and the planets, as intellectuals, was something they could focus on. Things like the ONA and that, very connected to nature. However, there are no beautiful, in many parts of the Middle East, forests and streams and all that kind of stuff. Places I went were like that for eternity. And then rocky hills. So studying nature isn't really part of what you could do then. So they studied the stars. So everything in Islam is associated in Islamic Magick, usually with astrology and astronomy. And they were they drew in a lot of influence from Hermeticism and all that, but planets and how the system works of how to do magic in Islam, because that's why you don't call them Sufis, because it just, unless they have gained sainthood, you don't call them that. And what the real people are more akin to fucking Aleister Crowley than to the idea of Sufism. The actual they were magicians. They did magic, and they did exorcisms. They did, they were ritual magic, everything. So these are the notes by a now dead, and for lack of a better word, Sufi mystic, whom was an exorcist for 20 years. And all of this comes down from an oral tradition. There is the reason there is so little on actual Sufism, for lack of a better word, is even just researching it. I shouldn't have this. This was meant to be burnt. If you notice, there are stains in here. These stains are from a specific mixture of oil. This is just straight out of magic. This is... And so the person whom this was written for forgot to burn this. And then when they were going to burn this, when I found it, I went, this is amazing. Can I please keep it? And then they told me, sure, I was going to burn it anyway. And I was a bit worried that might cause some issues by not burning this with regards to jinn or thing, but they were okay with it. And that's another reason why it's very hard to find stuff like this, is they destroy it after its use. Now, most of this is in Urdu, which is the native language of Pakistan, and also in some places in India. Urdu is spoken. It's also in Arabic. I was looking for this for years. And the system in Islamic Magick is mostly, there's like different planes above us. And the higher up you get, the closer you get to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what they're trying to do is, and this is how they get around it being forbidden, is then if they are able, they use alignments of the planets, star system, things like that, the moon, along with other factors, because those are sort of higher up and then when that all aligns, the power of that comes down into the talisman or whatever you're trying to do. So that is a strange way of them sort of justifying magic in Islam, and that's why a lot of it is based upon a lot of planetary stuff. And as you can see here, and this involves not just jinn. This is a regiment, and there are many, many, many pages of this. I haven't seen anything like this anywhere published. I've seen things by a few scholars. And annoyingly, I can't tell you exactly what this is, because neither can the person who was given this explain exactly how it all works, because this is from an oral tradition that is being destroyed, and the man who did this is dead anyway. So, as far as I know, his replacement doesn't exist. So essentially, there are people who will know what it is with regards to. I know what this is for, and I explain it after, but everybody is different in the praxis of magic, and so the exorcist and mystic who did this, given that he died young and that he was unable to train a disciple, the whole oral tradition of this very specific and highly respected man and lineage is gone. And it's a problem with them Salafists killing Sufis, is because you can't properly explain this without the oral tradition elements. There's stuff very similar to this, and the guy who did this, and I'll explain what this is for and why it's so comprehensive in a minute after a coffee. But the guy who did this it's the same person, but yeah, this one's simple. It's a magical word square, very prominent by the likes of Ahmed ibn Ali al-Bunai. And people have asked me to recommend them things on Sufism. Well, I'm not going to recommend anything. Mainstream. I'm going to put in so people can see this later, because people have been asking me for a very long time. So yeah, this guy is great. I'll give you his full name. Get used to this if you want to be involved in Islam. This guy was a mathematician and a philosopher, and he is a mystic, long dead. He wrote a lot of the magical squares. This guy, yeah, the Shams al-Marif al-Kubra. Here's the book. This is the real thing. It's just that a lot of Sufis will go, no, this guy's a sorcerer, but all the real mystics that I've met were doing stuff straight out of Al-Buni's writings. He was a contemporary of Ibn Arabi, who's very, very famous. And that brings me to... And annoyingly, I have a lot more books, but the problem is that I could only bring so much back with me. But I'm having more sent over along with all the Islamic garments. Another book that people wouldn't consider Sufism, but it is this, the Picatrix, or the Gayat al-Hakim, which is... This is probably one of the oldest magical grimoires. It was published in Spain in the 1100s, I think it was, but this is probably written in around 800 AD. H.P. Lovecraft's Necronomicon this is one of the major influences. H.P. Lovecraft's Mad Arab, Abdul al-Hazrad from Yemen, whom wrote the Dread Necronomicon. This book is... The Gayat al-Hakim is essentially... It's all astrological and astronomical magic. A lot of interesting stuff. No one knows why it's called the Picatrix or where that came from. So as given that this is a Western publication of a book on magic, people don't think this is Sufism, where this is absolutely Sufism. This is the real stuff. They were magicians. However, everything they did was not done by them, it was done through them. Similar to when Christians, say that they can heal people, faith healing. It's not them doing it, it's God. I'd recommend this book. Which I bought to try and understand how to make these myself. And even though this is more a thesis, it goes into a lot of Ahmed ibn al-Binai's work. And it also is very good because it sort of explains a lot of if you're somebody who doesn't know too much about Islam, this is very useful because a lot of the stuff involves things like the 99 names of Allah and all these other things that are not practices that are unknown to... they're very common practices, but they're utilized by Islamic mystics. So this is a good kind of summary of it, how it works. And I'm going to make something very comprehensive with this. I've been a complete mess today trying to put this together, but that's mostly been because I've gone through a lot recently and decided to cover the destruction of the mystic elements of Islam. However, all my main videos, they're all essentially just journalistic articles that I read out, the scripts. So I wanted to show that I am not just somebody who talks only about O9A. I love talking about O9A, but I don't want to be boxed in as just like somebody who's just trying to utilize the O9A as their... No, but it is my main investigation, and I'll be focusing on O9A for as long as I do this, because I can't avoid it. I love covering the O9A, and I've gotten to a point where I know so much that as somebody who didn't even know they existed until last year, from within 3 months after I started going into this, I interviewed David Myatt. I have been obsessed with the O9A because of the amazing access I have been given, which Sufism, my international understanding of things, travels, fuck-ups, association with Islam, association with neo-Nazism, and all the other stuff, and magic and the occult and journalism and spook stuff I did back in the day. The O9A, it's almost like there's no subject that is more perfect for me to talk about, as it just corresponds with everything else that, with his associations, interest in his sort of Islamic things, and with Myatt and with all the other stuff. Yeah, it's made a perfect storm of things that I know about. And like with my recent videos where they're edited better and all that stuff, I have 2 subject matters that I'm going to start covering whilst I continue my main investigation into the O9A, which I'm going to be stepping up dramatically now that the emergency situation I was in that took me away has been resolved for the most part. Covering in a concise way. This live stream is me just sort of saying I'm coming back, and I am going to be covering all sorts of things, and to show you some of the cool and interesting things that... but yeah, the problem I have is, to me, a lot of the Islamic stuff is far more interesting than it would be for the majority of my audience, because it has a deep connection with my past. Even though I am not a Muslim anymore, I am still deeply connected, interested in Islam. So yeah, the killing of Sufis and what Islamic Magick is. And I've got a whole bunch of Saudi Arabian Sharia police investigations that I'm going to cover, of the witch hunts of sorts that have been going on in the Middle East for a long time. And the Saudi propaganda of them showing, before they kill them, the blasphemous practices of these people in Saudi Arabia, and doing a commentary of this propaganda videos, I think would be very interesting. Like, the Saudi police have a guy, and he's wearing only red from head to toe. And the reason for that is it is prohibited to wear red is only red in Islam. And he's in a room where everything is red all around him, which is very interesting. And because blasphemy itself creates a magical charge, but it could be a setup to make him look bad by the Saudi intelligence division that focus on finding these evil men. So I think, yeah, and it's so prominent in Saudi Arabia still, because you cannot take, as much as the Salafists want to redact this, they can't, because it is too intertwined in Islam for so long that taking away the even just the stuff in this completely, all practices done by Muslims constantly anyway for so long. And yeah, I and the new age movement has been just as destructive, and I say this not hyperbolically, as the Salafists have been towards Sufism and what being a actual Muslim mystic is. The new age stuff is just killing it. Earlier, one of the other reasons I haven't talked about it is I get sick of saying the same shit over and over and over again when people bring up Islamic Sunni Sufi orders that have branches in the US, and then I have to say they're not legitimate. And then they get angry at me. And it's like, I just can't be bothered dealing with that, but it is what it is. So I am absolutely going to cover in a concise way Islamic Magick. I'm also going to be going into the intelligence services and how they operate and covering them, because I have a history with that when I worked for the Australian Securities and Investment Commission. I was a contracted private intelligence operator, and for the banks, infiltrating corrupt loans departments. I've mentioned this many times before, but because of my history with intelligence tradecraft, which I find very interesting, and some new contacts within intelligence that I have. To put it this way, I've gotten access to certain information that is mostly, all right, to put it this way, I've got a contact within the US Army's intelligence division. And all I can say is I have been given access to some very, very interesting things that I shouldn't have access to. Publications from the US Army all right, to put it this way, there are a lot of different intelligence related works that are unclassified, like the CIA's QBARC, counterintelligence and interrogation from the 60s, which is very interesting, and the CIA's HRE manuals, or human resource exploitation. However, they're very old and out of date. What I have is contacts within intelligence in the military that, and not just the US, but in intelligence around the certain army intelligence intel cores. And I have so many 2023 intelligence publications that are completely that are not public at all. So I'm not talking about the field manuals from the US Army on human intelligence, like FM 2-22.3, which is Human Intelligence Collector Operation, the Headquarters Department of the Army, September 2006. That's the famous one. No, I'm talking about publications from Army intelligence from 2021 to 2019 to 2023. Things from cyberspace operations, electromagnetic warfare, things like army support to military deception. some of these are released in the general public. However, they're editions that are not current. And not just US. Because the US are good because they have to publish things because of the Freedom of Information Act. Australia is so hard to get anything in Australia. Chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear operations. Anyway, to put it this way, I've got a whole bunch of hey man, how's it going? Got a whole bunch of stuff on human intelligence operations, clandestine operations, all that kind of stuff published within the past 3 years in the US Army and also in Australia's the Australian Army's Intel Corps. And my brief history with the military was essentially me. I got fast-tracked after a bunch of personality tests into essentially there was a direct special forces recruitment scheme. Don't know if it exists anymore, but I was in the process of going through that, and also they were moving me into the Intel Corps. Oh yeah. What roles? What roles? I don't know with the US what the application process is. I'm just seeing if this is the same one I did. Yours, the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, is a multiple aptitude battery that measures developed abilities and helps predict future academic and occupational success in the military, but is administered annually. I'm just seeing if it's the same personality test I did. Mine took like 6 hours or something. But good luck. Be prepared. The person who said that, I'm not going to read your name out. I don't read anybody's names out because of security reasons. Hey man, yeah, I went into a whole bunch of things that you would found interesting. I have been very scattered. This is very casual, and I was going to stop it soon. But I'm going to make more concise videos on some of the things I've talked about here. Same with the intelligence services, which is why I was going into that. But for you, if you're still here, are you still here? Oleg? I'll say your name. Before I go, I'll show you some shit. Yeah, it's recorded. It's a scattered mess, though, man. Because I've been exhausted, and yeah, I'm gonna make a actual proper video about this stuff. But essentially, I'll summarize it. I was mostly talking about how certain things are heretical, like this, published in 2016, 2017. My ex-wife had an edition, and her book was almost double the size of this. And I kept telling her that because I noticed a whole bunch of shit got cut out of this. Oh, thanks, man. So what I realized is that it was heretical. Her version was heretical, and they cut out a lot of the stuff. Yes, they are. And this, when I was in South Asia again, this book was no longer in print, because this one, the censored version, is still too heretical because of the Salafist and ideology and Deobandi ideology that is taking over southern India, Pakistan, and because this has things like that they consider, essentially it's magic. For certain situations. Like, say you're having a problem with insomnia or something. Or, oh, there's a cure for insomnia in here. Or like, you're the only person whose name I'm actually mentioning. It's funny, but all right. Oleg, I know that technically you're Jewish, but you're non-practicing and you're Israeli. Well, let's revert you to Islam to fix your fucking insomnia and anxiety. Here's one. Treatment of insomnia and anxiety, Oleg. Whoever falls a victim to insomnia and anxiety, he should recite the supplication mentioned below at the time of sleep. All right. I'm so rusty at reading Arabic that I will embarrass myself terribly. Oh God, this is too much. There's no way I'm going to be able to pull this off. Anyway, there's one for you. You can screenshot. I recommend blowing into a glass of water after reciting it. You have to recite it in Arabic, though, as it is, unlike Hebrew, the real language of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And a lot of this stuff, you say things like this like 3 times, and then you blow it like this into a glass of water after. You actually speak it into the water. It says to do that in this book with a whole bunch of stuff, but also this is just a general practice on by Muslims with connections to more mystical elements of Islam, like when I was, like my ex-wife, she would speak things into water and stuff, and then give it to me for certain conditions, Want to find an example. Usually it's on Magic. How dare you, Oleg? How dare you subvert everyone's expectations? Well, if it's so sacred, Oleg, why don't you try this for your insomnia? There's a whole bunch of them in here for insomnia, and see if it works. If it does, you have to convert to Islam. I'm sure that will go well. At least then we can go to Afghanistan. Though they'll still probably you'll still get killed probably. Even if you are a Muslim. You'll have to get a non-Israeli passport, or need to sneak you into Afghanistan. All right, there's another one for insomnia, 278. You know what, Oleg? I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to fix your insomnia for you. When one suffers at time of going to bed at night, you should recite. Oh man, this is going to be absolute nightmare, Oleg. But you're going to have to recite the holy Durud 100 times before going to sleep, and then the verse mentioned below should be recited repeatedly, which is La ilaha illa halwal malakal hahmakal mubin, which I'm probably butchering. But the holy Durud, with my lovely accent, you'll probably want to read Al-Fatiha, recite that in Arabic too for good measure before doing all this. So Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, Malakai Yamadin, Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in, Ishdina Siratal Mustaqim, Siratal Al-Lazina An'amta Arahim, Ghayril Maghdubi Arahim Awaladim. Ameen. You want to recite that, and then you're going to have to recite this 100 times. Ah, damn, Prince all fucked up. Oh, well. Alhamdulillah, Muhammadin Nahril Umay wa ala Allahi wa salim talismans. I'm butchering it. Oh no, only one. So you're going to have to recite this 100 times before sleep. Then you're going to have to recite. So that's then for good measure, you should add Al-Fatiha in for good measure. I added that myself for you, because that will make it more effective. And then you say the thing I read to you earlier. Now, it's believed that the holy Durud, in one narration, it is reported that the recitation of the following Durud 80 times after Asura Salah on Friday before standing up from the place of Salah shall be a means of 80 years of sins to be forgiven, and shall also merit the sawab reward of 80 years of worship. This is so, yeah, and you want to say, like Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. A lot of it is that. Speak Arabic into the water softly and then drink it. But yeah. So to close things, this is now too much magic in it for South Asia. So last time I was in South Asia, I couldn't get this, and I needed it because I am horrible at Arabic, and I was going to bring it with me, but these were everywhere. And I need to remember a few things. And yeah. I also showed off my Saudi Arabian Quran that, according to my ex-wife's father, who's dead, he was also a journalist. And he was a Arab aristocrat from somewhere in the Arabian Peninsula with a tribal background that could be traced for a very long time. He in his 70s and 80s and stuff was a foreign correspondent, a war correspondent, and he was given this Quran, which I showed earlier. This is amazing because this Quran was... Are you still there, Oleg? Now, journalists lie, so he may have told my ex-wife that this is given to foreign diplomats in Saudi Arabia to make, for status. But he was collecting this kind of stuff because he realized that this is all being purged by the Salafists. Oh, cool. And yes, you're lucky. I need to go to Israel. So this was published by King Saud himself. Authenticated this publication and translation of the commentary of the Quran. And it's the most amazing. And it's the Yusuf Ali translation in English. It's like one of your commentaries in Hebrew, where it on some of your the Jewish stuff you show me, where one fucking sentence will have a commentary of like 3 pages. But it's a beautiful book, published in the 80s. And the commentary is so amazing and so mystical. Anyway, King, this has all been sort of destroyed, these copies, because they've got too much mysticism in it and it's not Salafist enough. So I was explaining that. I explained that the only English translation of the Quran that's good is the Yusuf Ali translation. This is Yusuf Ali's commentary on the Quran. Because I finally got this stuff back. And then this were the hadiths that I followed. Sunni. Salafists. Sunni came out of a scholar where the word Wahhabism comes from, Wahhabi, but even they prefer to be called Salafists, and because it's more accurate. Then I started showing some of this. This is by a dead guy. This was given. This is a Sufi mystic. This was given to my ex-wife. He made this for her. The guy was a exorcist, and yep, exorcist. Yeah. Annoyingly, the Saudi Quran that I have, its commentary is the best I've ever read. It's on par with, yeah. Anyway, so this I have in my wallet, and I've had this in my wallet since 2017, hidden. And I've always been worried that I'd get pulled, over for drugs, and they see this baggie in my wallet and assume that, it's coke or something, and pull it out. Because I don't want them to break this, because the guy who did this is dead. This is about getting money. You keep it in your wallet. It is utilizing jinn to help you get, and it's being charged using the sort of standard Islamic method. And then I show people this, which you'll never see stuff like this because it's meant to be burnt. However, the person whom this was for allowed me to keep this, and I found it finally when I was away. And it's amazing. A lot of it's in Urdu and also Arabic. And I was explaining that Sufi orders are mostly bullshit. It's an oral tradition, usually passed down by one mentor to a promising sort of disciple. And sadly, the guy who did this is dead. And from what I know, he didn't have because it took him 20 years. Because when you're a mystic in these communities, you're the exorcist. You are the guy everyone goes to for every fucking problem. And Sufi just means saint, and it makes sense in the context of the misappropriation of that word as mystic, because most saints were, of course, people in the community who would use magic and things like that to help people and perform exorcisms, and then they would die and be sainted. Also, sainted beings are sort of this strange sort of idea in Islam. Anyway, this involves, for the person this was for, it involves jinn and also the sort of good sort of spirits. So it also involves astrology and astrological magic. And essentially, the person whom this was given to has to deal with three different non-material entities, jinn, and every day having to never miss giving them their dues, if you know what I mean. I've had some Pakistani write to me in Urdu on Twitter. He wrote, you're a Jew. He thought that yeah. But you're the best on Twitter. You do the funniest shit. You make fun of even interesting groups like ascetic Jews, like your commentary, your epitomal commentary of the ages of Jerusalem to piss off Hasidic Jews was absolutely amazing. But yeah, you're gonna get a lot of shit. That's why even if you converted to Islam, you're lucky though, because your name could be Eastern. You could pretend to be Russian and get a fake passport and then learn enough Arabic to pretend to be a Muslim, and then you can come into Afghanistan with me and you shouldn't die. And yeah, the other thing I did was recommend this book and the works of Ahmed ibn Ali al-Bunai. He will teach you how this works. Oh yeah. Niners who use the word shaitan, please stop. You don't know what you're doing. Shaitan is not Satan. Shaitan are not demons. There are no demons in Islam. There's only jinn and angels. Shaitan are more of a concept. Shaitan whisper in your ear to, fuck your marriage up and stuff. They're more like an unconscious entity, a sort of unconscious elements of your mind that are self-destructive. They're not, unlike jinn, which are in Islam a literal another species that co-inhabited this reality and planet with us. Shaitan are just a concept. They more than anything, and they whisper things in your ear to lead you from the straight path. So people, edgelord Niners, please stop with the shaitan thing. It's very, very annoying. And jinn, to spell them like that, jinn can be Muslims, good jinn, because in Islam, of course, the definition of being a good jinn is being a Muslim jinn. There are neutral jinn and there are evil jinn who are essentially demons. And aristocratic families believe that they have jinn in their bloodline. And I'm inclined to believe them because my ex-wife's family was the same. And a lot of weird things happen with her. No, I said that on purpose though, because in the Quran, you know, that is a word frequently used. But, you know, essentially not being led astray. But yeah. You know what I did, Oleg? I was deliberately making a joke. I recommended this, the Gayat al-Hakim, or the Pick of Tricks, because real Sufism is not ascetic cult members in some order. They're more closer to magicians who work in the community under certain lineages and traditions handed down orally and via being taught over decades. And the Salafists, the New Age bullshit, fake Islamic Sufi orders, and they are all ruining it. In Hebrew, there's a book literally called The Straight Path. Yeah. I mean, Islam is essentially just another branch of Judaism. Christian is not Christian. What the fuck am I? Oh, I can't exercise that demon from my history. Christians, Catholics Christians are just second temple Messianic rabbinical Jews. And then Protestants decided that Catholicism and Orthodox Christianity have too much paganism in it, and they cut it all out to be more Jewish than Jews. And Islam, Arabs are being treated not the best. Islam is just bizarre. I can't actually say it's just another form of Judaism, though they do dress like Jews with regards to prayers and stuff, and there's a lot of similarities, but Islam goes into a lot of very bizarre territory. I just wish Orthodox Judaism would incorporate Kabbalism, which New Age movement is ruining. They're the reason that Sufism is completely misunderstood and not taken seriously and made fun of by my Taliban friends. Same reason with that Orthodox Jews won't, for the most part, incorporate the Kabbalah. And the Kabbalah is great. It's a shame. Anyway, this was a stream just to sort of go, I'm back. Happy to cover other topics that I'm interested in. I'm still continuing with the O9A investigation. That won't end. And I have not been able to put together a proper script for videos. So I just thought I'd say I'm back. I'm going to be... Yes, and it's taboo because of the New Age movement, watering down Kabbalism, the whole Hasidic movement. There's a great quote by a Hasidic Jew from the 1800s who said, the Kabbalah is the only thing that saved that. What was it that kept me a Jew? Jewish Kabbalah is amazing, absolutely amazing. But at least it's easy to get primary core Kabbalistic texts, whereas in Sufism, Islamic Magick, it is so confused. Sefer Yetzirah being the main early sort of Mishratic Kabbalistic text, and there's Sefer Habat here. This is another one that I own that's good. Oleg knows all this stuff. But here, it's great. And then, of course, the Zohar is fantastic. I even recommend Niners who are interested, who have no interest, in any form of Jewish mysticism, to just check out some of this stuff, because there's a lot of similarities that have been incorporated into Hostia and now the magical system of the ONA. But at the same time, a lot of Kabbalistic stuff was Greek and Hermetic practices also dragged into it. So it all comes full circle in the end. They're just different systems with different correspondences. But they all serve very similar functions. But yeah, I find all this stuff very interesting. Oleg, you got to do that, reading the thing 100 times tonight, and then read that other sentence, and then you'll be able to you'll fix your insomnia. We got to do it, and then you're going to have to openly convert to Islam if it works. I'm gonna annoyingly, you don't have the books, so I don't know which one you have to read 100 times, because there's a lot of them. And since you like Punjabi so much, Punjab province is both in Pakistan and India, and so there are Sikhs, Muslims, Christians, and Hindus. A lot of the interesting stuff is sort of in Urdu. Yes, and then you have to go to your family and say that my name is, I'm going to give you, you're going to have to name yourself after Elijah Muhammad from that cult, the what's it called? Nation of Islam in America that Malcolm X is a part of. So yeah. No, you got to name yourself Abu Musad al-Zarqawi. That's your Muslim name. You have to go to your parents if it works, and you get to sleep. You then got to go to a masjid, Islamic or Islamic center, and revert to Islam. You'll have to say a whole bunch of stuff, and they will, after you have are a official Muslim, they will probably say you want to change your name, and this has to be your name. This is your Muslim name now, Oleg. You're now Abu Musad al-Zarqawi. He was a great man. Your parents, yeah. So you have to do that, and you have to go to Afghanistan with me and renounce your citizenship in Israel and join and naturalize in Afghanistan and join under the son of Omar Mohammed, the Minister of Defense in Afghanistan. Where is he? Mullah Yaqub. He is the son of the head of the Taliban who died, Mullah Omar Mohammed. Yeah, so yeah, I just take sleeping pills. Oleg, you need better sleeping pills. Let's see if this is legal in Israel. I've gone completely off the fucking radar, off topic. I've got a great thing for you to help you sleep in it. I don't think it's illegal in Israel. This shit is great. It's a miracle drug. And then, of course, it's Eastern European. Because we are the master race. We are Übermenschen. This stuff essentially is great for so many things. It used to be a bodybuilding supplement, help you get proper human growth hormone releasing delta sleep. However, in low doses, yeah, I would recommend Phenibut. Just don't take it every day. It's illegal in Australia now, annoyingly. Anyway, so yeah. Niche. Thank you for sticking around. I've got to go. I highly recommend people to read this book. I know it doesn't have the best ratings on Google and shit, but it's really, really solid, giving a basic kind of understanding. And this is the guy whom is one of the main I'd recommend reading this before getting any of their actual works. He was a contemporary of another famous magician. So this book, it's just, I'll copy and paste it again. It's just an interesting reference. And then I would also recommend the Gayat al-Hakim, the Picatrix. And annoyingly, I have a lot more works. It's just I could only bring so much back with me. Yes, and that's sort of what I want to talk about properly. That's why things like this are getting to a point where nobody knows how to do it anymore. It's happening in India, Pakistan, the Middle East, of course. And the fact that Saudi Arabia had such a mystical perspective on Islam, even and then after the 80s, it's just so Salafist. And same with in Pakistan, which is the Deobandi movement, is the Taliban, is the one in South and Central Asia. They are another Sunni sort of they're the Salafists of Central and South Asia. The Deobandi movement is under a different school of Sunni Islamic jurisprudence, but the Deobandi movement is heavily influenced by the Arab Afghan Mujahideen of the 80s. And so their Salafism during the Afghan Soviet War meshed in with the Deobandi movement. And yeah, it's pretty much interchangeable. However, for Central and South Asia, it's the Deobandi movement that is killing mystics and destroying texts, and then stupid Westerners are ruining what's left by knowing nothing about it and putting out new age bullshit. And then the oral traditions are all dying, and then the fake Sufi orders put out their bullshit when Sufis are married, members of the community, and have specific roles as exorcists, healers. Because if you have a fucking problem, they'll do magic using Islam before getting medical help, depending on the circumstances. Like with your insomnia, they would make you, you know, if I sent you the guy who did this stuff, he would go and say to you that you need to do that thing I mentioned earlier, 100 times. And then he would do something like it would escalate depending on how severe the problem is, possibly a talisman. But that's usually for bigger things. First starts with the word, with using the voice and blowing it into water and consuming it, and along with prayer. And then if that doesn't work, it'll move on to the next stage. There might be jinn involved that are stopping you from sleeping. So he might have to perform a kind of ritual to banish jinn. And then if that doesn't work, it might lead to him having to perform a exorcism on you and make you wear a talisman and say and do certain things at the end of your morning prayer to keep. And you might be move on to this stage where all the astrology and all the in-depth stuff really starts to come in. And then you'll have to essentially, after your morning prayer, do certain things to appease the jinn that have been utilized, that are now stuck with you forever, to help you with certain things. I don't even know what the 3 entities that are attached to this, apparently, to the person that this is for, because they haven't told me. It's private. That's another reason why I haven't talked about this stuff, is I didn't want to give people's private stuff out there and accidentally give away people's identities and things like that. But it's just been so many years now. But yeah, Oleg, I'm going to make a specific video covering the persecution of Islamic mystics in India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. And I'm going to do a commentary on Saudi Arabian propaganda of them arresting people performing magic and before they kill them. Oh, no, you're all right. Yeah, Sefer Harazim. Nobody knows how to apply it as far as I'm aware. You know what you can do? just say that you're from a lineage that taught the real meaning of Sefer HaRazim, and then you can go around proclaiming how it's utilized and bring in the money, and then no, I only do it because it's funny. You comment constantly on my Twitter, so and I just think it's funny because as much as I love the O9A, I don't believe in Zog, the Zionist occupational government. I don't believe that the Jews control the world. My friend here has the best quote regarding that, and that is, how the fuck can we control the world if we can't even run our own fucking country? And he is correct. It doesn't matter who put these systems of control in place. They're there. The people who are essentially in positions of influence in that, they have no idea what the fuck they're doing. You have to learn how to maneuver within the system without it destroying you. And that's the hard part. And then causing aeonic change by maneuvering and influencing within these systems of control in a manner that helps influence and bring forward the changes you want. And this is all Nina insight role kind of shit, but it's the same with Hermetic philosophy, so, you know, of aeonics. Changing things via this maneuvering. That's what I'm doing, and that's what we all have to do. Anyway, I believe in general Zionist occupational government. I don't know why I'm the only person that doesn't. No, I know a lot of people actually whom are involved who never say things like Zog and all that stuff. Because the main problem is European culture has been destroyed by Christianity. And they destroyed our pagan works and rewrote them. So we don't even know if Nordic mythology or any of it is real because it was written by monks who were Christians. So we essentially have no identity. We're where everything is based upon a Messianic Second Temple rabbinical Judaism movement from Syria that flooded into Europe. And so we really don't know whom we are. And that is why Jews get blamed for a lot of things. However, Jews aren't running around trying to convert all of Europe into, and then, in ISIS style, like the early Christians out of Syria did, just destroy everything and kill everyone that doesn't convert. So I have a lot of bitterness for Christianity, but not Christians. I have a lot of respect for Orthodox Christianity. But a lot of the stuff that the people get drawn to ONA or Nazi ideology in Europeans is that they see Christianity as a Jewish religion, which is true. Christianity came out of a insane movement of Messianic Jews whom were so extreme. So hashtag not all Orthodox Jews. It is Orthodox Christianity. And it's the same with Islam. It's very mystical. It's just Salafism is doing the same thing that the early Christians were doing. A lot of Orthodox stuff has a lot of at least that has kept quite a lot of European culture in it, Eastern European culture. And allow a more allowance of mystics. It's Protestantism that is the big issue. It's stripping away everything. So that's what draws people to the occult or esoteric Nazism or neo-paganism or Aleister Crowley. People in the West, especially Western Europeans, because they don't have, at least in Serbia and other Eastern European countries, there are traditions that are still upheld that the Orthodox Christians didn't care about, and thus kept some elements of who we are in place. Whereas in Western Europe, they have no idea whom they are. And they are completely lost. And that's why the ONA is so alluring to, especially to Europeans, and especially if you're in the UK, because it's so connected to pre-Christian pagan culture, and that's where a lot of this hatred towards Jews, which is unfair, comes from. People don't even know why. They blaming someone in Israel for problems you're facing in Scotland that have come about from a movement that has nothing to do with the person you're blaming in Israel. It's cognitive dissonance. That's why I keep trying to move people away from the Zog shit and into... It's like if I blamed Albanians for every fucking thing that happens. So yeah, I have no problem with Israel, which is such a heretical standpoint to have these days. Even when I was in academia, all the far leftists, I even had Jews. I even had Jews apologizing for being Jewish and Israel, stating that Israel shouldn't exist. That's like me saying, that's like me apologizing because to fucking people because of Serbian genociding Bosnians and Albanians. It's absolute insanity. At least there is evidential proof of horrendous war crimes from Serbia. So yeah, I like to support the underdog of sorts, and the far left and the far right have one thing in common: they all hate Israel. They all, and yeah. So in fact, the leftists are more extreme. And it's a dangerous position for Israel to be in. You have people involved in international relations whom are completely wanting the destruction of Israel, essentially, and they have they're absolutely insane. They're insane. These academics are fucking crazy. They think that I am a far right ethno-fascist Serbian, and they just attack everyone, and they're so having these people in positions of control over the international state system is a nightmare. It's fucked. Both sides of the political spectrum, fucked. Yeah, and it all comes full circle. And the academics whom are no longer at all realists in international relations, political theory, IR theory, they're all progressives, communists. And that's not good. That is not good. And we're in a fucking awful situation. Because these people are push all the woke diversity shit, but they are fucking dangerous. They're not diverse. Then they are specifically in international relations. Of which, yeah, it's actually terrifying. My contemporaries, and which is why I have no involvement in academia anymore. There's no place for me. Everything's about identity. So my friend Oleg has to be an Israeli Jew, but he has a background from Central Asia. Most likely family is only Jewish because that region was turned Jewish at some point because he's not a Sephardic Jew. Things are complicated, and they refuse to understand that. So me, Serbian background, have family in Serbia, inheriting property in Serbia, must be doesn't agree with them on something, and then the fucking nail in the coffin was the gatekeeper, career-wise, happened to be someone who worked for the UN for the War Crimes Tribunal of Serbian war criminals in Bosnia and Serbian war criminals in Kosovo. And that's the only thing this person had been involved in the international state system. Just 10 years of Serbian war crimes. So I was fucked when they found out my ties in Serbia. Oh God. Yeah, you're right. I just brought that up because of the interesting history that nobody takes into consideration anymore with all of this stuff. It's a complicated mess that you have to try and navigate. And that's why identity is so dangerous. Anyway, I'm exhausted. I appreciate anyone who's participated and watched. I will be making a far more concise thing. I think people will find me showing guys about to be executed, showing in Saudi Arabia, showing their magical workings in Saudi propaganda that I can deconstruct. I think people might find that interesting. And ONA stuff is naturally very much going forward. And I'm going to be going into the intelligence services and covering, given some new contacts I have and access to certain things that are not public. The main issue is navigating that is extremely difficult because it's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of PDFs, all 600 pages, and you have to know exactly what you're looking for, all the terminology. But understanding how human intelligence works and how clandestine operations and the intelligence services operate and their tradecraft, I think, is something extremely important to cover, because people need to know how to navigate that as the laws get giving far more control to the intelligence services in a lot of countries like Australia. And understanding, and they're not getting the best people anymore, which is a big problem, because everything has gotten so bipartisan. So you're either left or you're right. And they don't do the same recruitment methods that they used to, where they would pull somebody and have people involved whom are not people that would ever normally pass the requirements to be an intelligence officer. However, because of their involvement in certain things and a proven history, they let these kind of maverick people in. The intelligence services are now essentially becoming not the foreign intelligence services, but some in the national, trying to be more they're mediocre. The mediocrity of everything. You have to be this boring, mediocre people are not good at understanding complex networks that you need to navigate through in order to stop or change things in line with national security interests. You need people like Niners, to be honest. I don't know if this is the case completely, but I know this is the case in a lot of agencies in Western countries at the moment. And that's not a good place to be. So understanding tradecraft and how they operate, it's fascinating to me. It's essentially magic, and having things up to date, 2023, up to date with regards to HUMINT, SIGINT, everything is extremely valuable. And I don't know anybody who is covering it in a sense. So I'll be continuing forward. My main focus, I've put so much work into investigating and connecting with the ONA. That is my main focus. I want to cover some stuff involved with Islam, persecution of Sufis on the side, and also the intelligence services on the side, because I think it's important to have people understand the real diverse kind of investigations that I can do, rather than getting locked in. But I will be locked in anyway as the ONA guy, because I am a face. You can actually see me. You can see my investigation, where I started, how misinformed I was, and you can watch that journey. And people are so misinformed on it that I will keep pushing that what is ONA and what isn't, because it's extremely, extremely important to not sensationalize Martinet Press and all that shit like Hanrahan does. When people moralize to me, I hate this. I hate people, these cunts who moralize to me going, you know, oh, that child abuse video you did was good. But all I do is defend the ONA. No, what I'm doing is telling what ONA is according to what it was, according to core texts, pre-internet, contacts whom were involved from the beginning, and people involved in the collective. Because if people keep, and yes, the pedophiles, Martinet people, yes, they're ONA. They're calling themselves ONA to profit off the brand. If I quit right now, Interzone, some dickhead could use my brand and try and hijack it for my lovely but very diverse, interesting audience of people from all kinds of backgrounds. But anyway, just because they call themselves that doesn't mean they're that. How stupid do you have to be to even make that argument against me? And then it's just that they're cynical. They don't give a shit that promoting the edgelord shit does nothing but draw and legitimize it. The media is legitimizing Martinet, the pedophile shit, making vulnerable young people get sucked into these pedophiles and these fucked up degenerates who pretend to be niners and then groom them. It's fucking horrible. And I expose that shit. All right, do the what's it called? Do the cure I gave you. if it works, you have to revert to Islam. Anyway, I'll go too. But yeah, I am so sick of these cynical people moralizing about the work I do, because I will, quote, twist it in some way to make the ONA look good. Acting as if, well, I know what these people are doing. I'm sick of it. I don't care. As far as I'm concerned, people whom sensationalize and legitimize Martinet and all that shit as ONA, all these journalists are doing is, as far as I'm concerned, you are a fucking accessory to child abuse. You are proliferating child abuse by moralizing and legitimizing the most sensational, stupid bullshit as being real. Because it's all reality control. And all my fucking job is to try and give you the reality of it. Not my reality and not theirs. That's it. That is all a journalist is supposed to do. I am absolutely done, fucking done with the bullshit and complicity and proliferation of child abuse and by the mainstream media and the likes of Hanrahan. Moralize all you want. I'm not complicit in that. I am not making that shit. I'm not monopolizing the same fucking narrative as you stupid, cynical cunts who would rather have children abused than make a group of people who don't politically align with you look neutral, not look like pedophiles. You need those people. You vampiric fucking scum journalists. So call me what you want. But your reality and your reality control is breaking. And people like me are replacing you. Very slowly, yes. But that's why none of you ever mention me and do things like that, is you'll bring more people to me because you're threatened little boys who are scared of somebody who with absolutely zero funding or help is able to do your job better than you. And your time is up. Thank you for watching. Fuck you, modern contemporaries in journalism and in academia and Western culture. Edgelord Niners, as long as you're not pedophiles, do what you want. But it's really lame and embarrassing. You're going to be my age one day. Read the real shit. And yeah, things are getting interesting. You never know what is going to come around the corner.